I studied Shakespeare's Hamlet so that you didn't have to, and you could still be ready for all the eggs and references in the Fate of Ophelia song and music video. So who's Ophelia? Ophelia is one of two female characters in Shakespeare's tragedy Hamlet. The play centers around Hamlet learning that his recently deceased father, the king, was murdered by his uncle so that his uncle could take over the throne. And the play opens on Hamlet's uncle, the new king, marrying his mother, the recently widowed queen. Hamlet is, of course, extremely upset by this, and now Hamlet decides that he needs to avenge his father. And it all goes terribly wrong from there. So where does Ophelia fit into all of this? Well, she is the daughter of the new king's advisor, Polonius, the sister of Laertes who advances the action, and at least until the play starts, the love interest of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. And she is a woman who has absolutely no agency over her life throughout the play and is portrayed as very passive and very accepting of the instructions that she is given by her father, her brother, and by Hamlet as well. So when the play starts, her father Polonius and her brother Laertes are giving her instructions to avoid the advances of Hamlet because he's the prince, he's going to make a more advantageous marriage, and she shouldn't trust his advances. She definitely accepts their instructions, but she also pushes back to her brother a little bit in probably my favorite of her speeches throughout the whole play, where she tells him, you know, it's all well and good that you're telling me to be chaste, but you better do that as well, brother. If you are going to give out that advice, you better follow it. And Ophelia's role within Hamlet is really to advance the action and to be a pawn in these men's games against each other, which I imagine Taylor will probably touch on a little bit, feeling like a pawn herself within powerful men in the industry's games. Now, early in the play, Hamlet decides to feign madness, and so the king and Polonius, her father, decide that it must be because they've told Ophelia to reject Hamlet's advances. And so they tell her, oh, it isn't working, so you should try and accept him again. And then Hamlet, in turn, decides to completely mistreat Ophelia. Shortly after that, her father is killed by Hamlet, and according to the play, this sparks her descent into madness. And it's only when she is mad, or potentially feigning madness, it's not completely clear, that she is able to really claim any agency at all. And she pushes back against all of the ways that women were supposed to act. She sings these really lewd songs. She gives out a bunch of flowers that all have a lot of symbolism to them. And then she leaves. And that soliloquy is really where we see the most of Ophelia in the play. The next we hear, Queen Gertrude comes in to tell her brother and the king that Ophelia has drowned, that she was up in a willow with a bunch of flowers in her madness. The branch broke. She fell into the river and she just sort of floated away and drowned, surrounded by all of these flowers. And it's supposed to be very tragic and poetic and delicate. And then we next use Ophelia at her burial. Hamlet and her brother both declare how much they loved her and try and blame each other for her death. And really, these men didn't take care of her at all. They didn't really worry about her at all when she's alive. So how can you now say that you loved her now that she's dead? At least this is my take on it. And so I'm wondering if Taylor will also touch on that sort of aspect, the way that, you know, once she's dead, everyone's extremely upset. But while she was alive in this play, she was dismissed. She was talked down to. She was treated as a pawn. She was treated as unworthy of Hamlet. And then lastly, Taylor titled her song The Fate of Ophelia, which is death by drowning. And most of the pictures that have ever been made of Ophelia, the paintings, the drawings, etc., they all center on her death. No one focuses on this woman when she was alive. They all want to talk about her tragic death. And I think that's something that would really stick out to Taylor, and that Taylor may touch on when she talks about the fate of Ophelia in her title track and in this music video. Of course, we've had this one circle because of its similarities to the title image for the Life of a Showgirl, but Ophelia's fate is to be dismissed and pushed around, used as a pawn, and then to tragically drown surrounded by flowers. I'm interested to see what Taylor does with this. I'm hoping that she's either calling out the treatment of many women within the industry, or she's rewriting the fate of Ophelia. That would be almost even better. Up next, I'll be exploring many of the similarities between Elizabeth Taylor and Taylor Swift. There are several places where I could see Taylor really identifying with Elizabeth Taylor, drawing inspiration from her. And so there is a lot to unpack there. I also have a video on Opalite coming up, so please like and subscribe so that you don't miss anything. We are mere hours away from the release of The Life of a Showgirl, and I don't know about you, but I can't wait. This is pretty exciting. All right, I will see you soon. Bye.